This video will be about using silicone glue to combine two halves of assembly to move air through the filter. So I have a fan that's going to pull air in. It's going to create, once these two parts are combined, this fan is going to create a low pressure area right here that's going to encourage the atmosphere, which is at higher pressure, to push more air through the fan, and that in turn is going to create a high pressure area inside this box. And I seal the edges of the box. The only way for that high pressure air to get back to the atmosphere, which is lower pressure, is to go through this exhaust port and from there into the hood, which is going to keep you safe in an area of filtered air. And if you don't get sick, you won't get anyone else sick. So being safe does indeed save lives. When working with this silicone glue, it's good to get a little bit out of the tube first before you start working with it, because it does sometimes dry the tube a little bit. And if you are going to use just one glue for the whole project, I would recommend this glue as that type. Kind of use this particular respirator that I'm building now as an opportunity to experiment with working with epoxies. So the reason why I'm using this particular glue for this part is exactly because it does stick to the type of plastic that I'm working with. I want to say, is this polypropylene? This does stick to polypropylene a little bit, but it can be removed, peeled away, also cut a lot more easily than if I'm using an epoxy. So in terms of, I might want to at some point open this up again. Let's say I wanted to change out the fan or something like that, using the silicone glue instead of the epoxy will help a lot in that case. Also, if I get a leak here, the air hasn't been filtered yet. As long as I don't have so much of a leak that I'm not creating an area of high pressure inside the box, as long as the fan is pumping air in more quickly than it's leaving through any seams in this box, I will be fine. Because only unfiltered air will just be leaking into the atmosphere, not into the hood. That's one of the things that makes positively pressured. That means pressure is a little bit above atmospheric pressure. Positively pressured filtered air in a hood so effective is exactly because you can have plenty of leakage as long as you're pumping in filtered air so quickly that no unfiltered air can get in. I definitely recommend so far this GE silicone, because at $4 a tube, it's a great price and works as well as any of the silicone caulks that I've used. Works a lot better than one that has written on it "as seen on TV." I regret having purchased. I should see about returning it. I don't think I'll ever use it because it's just not a very good product. Pretty much in general, if you see something that says "as seen on TV," better to avoid it. Avoid it. Just say no to ads or no toads. And it looks like we had a successful putting together two halves of a filter assembly with silicone caulk, or creating an area for high pressure between a fan and a filter. Oh, actually no, I spoke too soon. There's a couple holes on this lid, which I know I filled up some of them. I got that one, I didn't get that one, I think there's one on the other side. Could actually get quite a significant amount of air. You can see that, so make sure those are filled. And then there's two more on the other side. I will get those. And then hopefully when I wake up tomorrow, this will be well enough cured so that I can test it out. Hopefully I'll get, if I'm really lucky, I'll get about 2 liters of air per second. If I'm extremely fortunate, 2.5 liters of air per second. That's kind of my golden rule. That's about equivalent to 10 breaths every 2 seconds. If I can get at least a liter of air per second, I would be happy with that, or happy enough. This filter is, I believe, a real HEPA filter, because it's marketed by 3M, which has enough, I think has enough stake in its brand that any money that they might save in not really making a HEPA filter pales to how much they could lose by damage to their brand recognition. So I think this is likely a HEPA filter, which by the US standard filters out 99.97% of the particles that are sized to be most effective at getting through the filter. So a much smaller particle, you might, let's say that the virus, you have an individual virus with a minimal coating of water and it's 1 micrometers across, like 100 nanometers, that would actually be more likely to get picked up by this filter than a slightly larger particle at 0.3. So the 0.3 millimeter particles are the kind of Goldilocks zone for being the most likely to get through. Going to inspect this a little bit to I might have left a little bit of a gap there. Might have actually been better to open this lid and actually put a little layer in between. Let's see how this works. There's a little bit of an air hole right there. Probably should follow my do not touch advice. Kind of thinking, I wonder if might actually help to run toothpick in between the seams. That might actually be helping. But sometimes it's okay to touch. Sometimes you do more good than harm. Sometimes more harm than good. Tough bit is knowing which time is which. The only point to going another round would be to see if I could get glue on the fan, which would be bad. And I think I'll go back around with a toothpick, not a toothpick. Do you have a habit of not using the exact word that I mean? Popsicle stick. If you run through my videos, you'll find a lot of examples where I mean one word and say another. If you're in one of my classes, you might find a question on the video asking you to point out such a part and say which word did I mean. That would be group exercise so that if English is tougher, we could pair with someone who might help. Let's see. Let's have this. Should maybe make transcribing videos into other languages an extra credit assignment. That would be kind of cool. That's how I'd have some idea that a student is going to go on to graduate school, as if they're transcribing videos. Okay, this glue is starting to get to the point where it has, it's called developing a skin, where there's a bit of a layer on the surface that's transitioning from a liquid where molecules can easily pass each other to more of a solid where they cannot. Sometimes the transition is not so cut and dry. So stuff like steel, if you apply enough pressure, you can often get molecules to slide past each other even when they're in what we would think of as a solid, such as steel or rock. I think I've made that seal around this, and I will leave it to the morning. So that was a video about using silicone cauck to seal, put two halves of a box together to create a high pressure zone for a filter. I have a motor pumping air in from the atmosphere. into the inside of this box, and then from this box through the filter, and then out the box into a hood.